The following podcast is intended for mature audiences. The opinions expressed do not reflect this station or any affiliated partners. Listener discretion is advised.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Geek Easy.
Just talking? Well, what's the show about? It's about nothing.
Thanks for joining us for the special edition of the Geek Easy. With us via Skype is Doug Drexler, here to talk about Star Trek Discovery and other stuff, maybe.
How you doing? Is everyone good?
We're awesome, Doug.
We're also honored to meet you.
Okay, first, right off the bat, first horse out of the stable. This is the first Star Trek on the air that you haven't worked on, right?
Well, I mean, I didn't work on the original. I mean,
Okay, true.
I do have a credit on some remasters. But, yeah, pretty much.
Okay, and I mean, we're not worried about the
First time on
movies.
television.
You didn't work on any of the other film after was it? Did you work on Nemesis?
I did work on Nemesis.
Okay, yeah. So this is like a whole new Star Trek, whole new cast, whole new crew, behind the scenes, and
Whole new world.
oh dear
Whole
God.
new frontal lobe.
I have my opinions of it, but we'd like to get yours as someone who has been in the Star Trek world for decades. How do you feel about it? What would you like to see come from it? And from what you've seen already, where do you think it should go?
I have to say at the outset that you have to understand that I have a personal relation to this production. I never worked on it, but I had dealings with it. And I felt that a lot of people, including myself, were not treated very well by them. So it might be hard for me to have the proper perspective, but I will try. But basically, they're not my favorite production, and but I'll be good.
Okay.
I'll be good.
Okay, that's understandable.
Well, if you do feel like being controversial, it'll help us get more views, but that's up to you.
Doug will be our first clickbait.
I have very mixed feelings about it as a fan and as someone who works in the business. Personally, I have no idea. I mean, a lot of people are jumping to conclusions about this show. Single Star Trek series. All of them met with the same resistance that Discovery is getting now. Even Next Generation. They didn't like Picard. They didn't like TNG in the beginning. They hated DS9. Now I'm told it's one of the best ones. They hated Enterprise. They hate them all because they see them as replacing their beloved friends that they still are enjoying. You know, I understand that reaction. Now, I'm not defending Discovery. Most of what I've seen is baffling to me. I think that, and this is understandable, that the average person, I mean people who are not Star Trek geeks, don't understand the mechanics of what's going on, the 50-year relationship that Star Trek has had with its audience. Unless you're a part of it, it's hard for you to understand how that works, and it's very delicate.
Well, it's hard for them to understand. I mean, I get it because I watched it since I was a little kid. I'm around your age, Doug, and I completely understand what the hard fans are feeling, because when I look at the design ethic that went into this particular show, not so much the costumes, which I suppose I could live with because they seem a little Galaxy Quest-ish to me, but But when I
Well,
look
the
at the
whole
set,
show looks
the set
like-
designs are so
I have to
far
say.
beyond what they should be.
Seriously, first let me say that these are superficial things that you're pointing out now.
I know.
I understand the aesthetic. I understand the aesthetic sequence of things over the last 50 years, and I see that, in my opinion. But if it's a terrific show that tells terrific stories that we're all proud of, we can live with that.
Well, Doug,
And you will too. People didn't like the Enterprise D.
Doug, do you think they've pigeonholed themselves with the time period they picked?
Well, my opinion, number one, and I think that Paramount needs to understand this, that Star Trek needs to be treated like a period piece. It's history. It has to be treated like history. It's immutable. You can't change it. When we went back there on our shows, we made sure it was exactly that ship, right down to the last. That it has to be treated as if it really happened. You can't go in there and throw it all away and check new people and turn it upside down. You're offending your core, your core audience. You're totally offending them. If you want to do Star Trek and you want to make it your own, this is my Star Trek, move it ahead 100 years from where we last left them. 100 years forward from Picard. Then you can change everything you want. Work, you might not make it work, but the thing is that you didn't pee all over everything that brought the show to where 50 years later they're still making movies and TV shows. So I understand them wanting to play with it and saying, well, let's try for a broader audience. I think that's a mistake. You don't go for a broader audience. You'll dumb Star Trek down if you do that.
Well, this is where
they've run your core audience, and you'll get the other people too.
This is where the subscription service thing is going to hurt them, I think, because they want the core audience.
Well, listen, if it was a great show, I'd pay that much every month. For however many weeks. I mean, hopefully you'll be able to do it. On Amazon, you could go and get a couple of months of HBO. I don't know how CBS is going to do it. But really, how much do they want for a month?
I think it's around 9 or 10, isn't it?
That's without commercials. It's $6.99 per month.
So I get 4 hours of new Star Trek. So times that's like 4 brand spanking new episodes. If they're great, you won't think that that's that much.
True.
Honestly, how much do you pay on your Eagle Moss ships? And that's not that much, really. I don't think, if they're great.
My big worry with it being on All Access is that they're forgetting what has helped Star Trek survive, and that is bringing in new young fans. How many people are going to be sitting down with their kids to watch this show? That's what helped TOS become a classic, is the kids sat down and watched.
They think that by shaking up the box and trying new things, they'll find something that a younger audience will go for.
That's what scares me, is the younger audiences. The younger audiences right now are running to Game of Thrones, and they're running to Westworld, and all of the HBO shows that, while well written, push the envelope in ways to gain. It's like, oh, look how shocking this was. Look what we can do because we're on HBO, and you can't see this on network television. With it not being on network television, Star Trek never had to rely on titillation to get viewers.
Look at what's already happened. We went from Kirk sitting in
hold
the bed.
on a second.
We went
the same way.
Come on, really?
Well, no, you know what I mean.
Did you watch the original series?
Oh,
yes, but we never saw.
66.
But
that was some pretty racy stuff.
We've gone
Bill
from
Teese
Kirk.
was all about titillation, man.
Okay.
We've gone from Kirk sitting on a bed, putting on his boots, to the Alice Eve shot. I mean, there's a big jump there.
Yes. What I'm talking about is cheapening it. Is giving the fan skin.
I understand.
Okay, yeah. I mean,
that Alice Eve shot was completely unnecessary.
We had something that David Icke, our producer on Galactica, whenever there was a shot, if you did a shot that looked like it was a look at me shot, he would say that's too precious, and it would be out. And when they do things like that, they're being too precious. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think most people realize it.
That is not the first time I've heard that from someone working in the business. It's a great expression too, and it's
That's
absolutely
too precious.
Oh, that's too precious. God.
It's too precious.
Well, isn't that
You know.
precious?
It's too self-aware. You know, the shot becomes too self-aware. It's like they're playing you.
Well, it was all those scenes between Trip to Paul rubbing each other down with antibacterial gel. You know, it was like,
Okay, I'll give
You
you
know,
those.
I mean, granted, she was wicked hot, and Trip was a hot dude, and all of that was hot, but was it that necessary? I mean, you were it felt like they were wasting critical time where they could be telling a story, and instead they're oogling.
I might have said so on the first saw it, but when I saw where they went with Trip and T'Pol, I saw it as building towards that. And I thought that relationship was really sweet. And I'm sorry we didn't get to see where that went.
I really wanted to see how that wound up, yeah.
It started with one of my favorite Enterprise episodes. The one where Trip is mortally wounded, and Phlox has this like this guava that he's going to grow in, put some DNA from Trip into it, and grow another Trip to take the organs that he needs to transplant into Trip. Apotheosis?
That was a good episode.
Yeah.
It was a Manny Cool episode.
Manny rocks.
And that was such an emotional episode. And you saw this young Trip grow up and fall in love with her as a young boy, you know, and finally grow up. And they have to literally, they have to kill him to farm his organs. It was a heartbreaker. But, you know, as far as that notorious gel scene, when I take it all into consideration, it works better for me. When I first saw it, I was like, I thought that if they had gone down the line, kept it a little shorter, gone down the line with the gel, and that the last one is Trip putting gel on a dog.
Yes!
That would be great.
Yes!
They never actually showed Porthos getting gelled up, did they?
I
had
actually
to.
think they did.
That's
they?
Yeah,
funny. I don't know.
It was that episode that Porthos got an infection and he had to stay in sickbay.
Yes.
I think it was called A Night
in Sickbay.
I had this idea that Archer and others are finding turds in the corridors, and people think that it's Porthos. And Archer is sure Porthos would never do anything like that. And then one night he stakes out to see who it is, and it's Phlox. Didn't go for it.
Oh, that would have been perfect. Sorry, it's just that time of the.
He's sleep pooping. He's the mad pooper. Did you sell that story to Bob's Burgers? Because that is very similar to one of their episodes.
Is it really?
Oh yes, there's an episode called The Mad Pooper, and it's very similar.
Really?
Yes.
Weird.
Yes. Okay, back to Discovery.
Yeah, this is going to crap at this rate.
Yes, back to Discovery.
I see what
now,
you did there.
because we did touch on the superficial stuff, the exterior, the look of the show, and what people are flipping out about that, I don't mind an updating as long as the update makes sense. But some of the stuff I've seen looks like it went too far. It looks so far further than what's already been established, especially on the ship that we have seen, the Shenzhou, I think it's called, where it looks post-Voyager, post-Nemesis, and I'm like, okay, is this a ship from the future?
Adam, I hate to interrupt, but
Yeah.
13 minutes ago, CBR posted an article saying Tribbles are coming to Star Trek Discovery.
No, dear Lord.
We're screwed.
Well,
No,
some
no,
of the shots
no.
are from the Discovery, like that new transporter room with the
Yeah.
and stuff like that from the AW shoot. That's apparently on the Discovery.
I mean, some of the stuff I've seen, like the tricorders and the phasers and all those, look really good, but we
Well,
have
and
yet...
the one ship that's blowing up has a TOS aesthetic.
Yes, it does.
Europa.
I think the big question I want to ask Doug is this: do you see a way that they could have found a way to bridge the TOS universe and this new iteration design-wise, in a way that could have been aesthetically pleasing and still kind of hold true to the original?
Of course. Of course.
Why do you think
that whole design ethic still, you could easily extrapolate that. I don't feel like, from what I've seen, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I really don't see the line connecting the errors.
At all. And what really bothers me, the more I read about this, is people saying things like, well, you know, those sets were made out of cardboard and garbage and they went dumpster. Yeah, sure, okay. But it still holds up. You watch it today,
I mean,
it
honestly,
still holds up.
it holds up, and when I give the Ticonderoga set tours, I
go
into this. It holds up because it's done in such a way where you could tell. Well, look, you had Matt Jeffries, who was an engineer, a flight engineer on a B-17 during the war, and Gene Roddenberry was pilot of a B-17 in the Pacific, and these guys had in their head something that Matt called aircraft logic. And because you knew that although the designs were on the theatrical side, they were done with such heart and trueness to what it is they were trying to do, that you accepted, you went along with it. And even today, you'll still go along with it because you could see take some basic sets. I don't mean the Jupiter 2, because I think, and that was all brilliant stuff. But most of the sets on, say, Lost in Space, if you look at them, you could tell that they're more phantasmagorical,
whimsical. Yeah,
and that stuff looks real silly after a while. Star Trek was always done with such seriousness that even today, I mean, look at that bridge from the original series, and we recreated it several times. We did, as a matter of fact, we did a version on Enterprise where we sleeked it just a tiny bit, but it was still the same place. Stuff that you wouldn't notice at first. Those designs look freaking awesome. The trouble is most people look at them who don't understand, and they say just what you were saying. Oh my God, that's paper mache rocks and stuff like that. That they're blinded to the truth of it, and that it's a timeless aesthetic. But ultimately, if you want Star Trek fans to be happy, you must treat it as history. It's immutable. You don't. If you're doing Pearl Harbor, you don't give the Japanese F-15s because they look cooler. Okay, I understand that those things are propellers.
Well, I made a
look like a joke. F-15.
There's a thread going on somewhere right now, and I made a point of saying something similar to that. Saying, look, you wouldn't put Daniel Boone in a Frank Lloyd Wright classic house, okay? He'd be in a cabin, and you've got to hold true and show respect only to the character, but the setting in which they reside.
Now, let me say this. I'm not without sympathy for them, because I went through a lot of this myself on Enterprise. A lot of people really ripped the NX and said it didn't look like the time. For me, it does. From the original series, looks more futuristic than the NX. It's sleek like a marine animal, the original series ship. Yeah. The NX has got plates, and as things get more advanced, they become simplified. So I went through a lot of that. I think people were wrong. I think there was a lot of knee-jerk reaction, which we're getting lots of it right now over Discovery. Whether it's warranted or not, I don't know. To be frank, I haven't looked at all the trailers when they come out, because it's too painful for me to look at.
I'm right there with you.
I've looked at all the stuff, and the more I see, there's stuff that I really do enjoy, and some of the other stuff that still has me going, it scratched my head. I'm like, I understand the reasoning behind going further and making it look more futuristic, but Enterprise had a submarine feel. You guys did a really good job of getting that cramped, tight space. It felt...
Oh, sets were great.
Yeah. I don't know. Now, I always thought, the TOS stuff, watching them walk around on the Defiant Bridge on Enterprise, still kind of felt hokey to a point to me, because it really was... They went from touchscreens and all that to the...
Not to me. I love it too much, I guess.
I do. Don't get me wrong. I love it too. TOS is one of my favorites. It's the only one I own on Blu-ray right now. I haven't gotten the next generation yet. the aesthetic. They could have updated it to a point.
Better technology than that in my pocket. You know?
Yeah.
The most important thing, it's not so much about updating as, as being sure to make those threads of aesthetics and history run through everything so you can see how they connect. People fell in love with the NX when they found out it was going to evolve into the NX refit.
I wish we'd seen that.
Yes.
It's a starship where you see it moving towards the next ship. That's exciting. People love that. When you decide you're cutting ties to everything and you're just going to do your own thing, that's a huge, huge blunder.
Well, you're Doug. This is Tank. My question for you, since it kind of ties right in with what you're saying, how would you, if you were on this project, how would you tie in the design of like Discovery or Shinzo, whichever ship? So would it be like, and we're speaking generally speaking, so would it be like kind of a mix of NX and the original series, so it's showing that transition?
Well, I mean, you're talking like I would have something to say about it, even if I was on the show. I mean, what you're saying is that if you were the producer who was dealing with the production designer, right? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, just kind of generally speaking, like if you had the choice, that it's like, okay, this is what I'm looking for, so that we kind of tie everything together. That make it unique, and yet it still shows the history, as you're saying, that it all comes together.
Well, that's just it. You just answered it. I mean, you have to be sure to have all the fingerprints from both eras, so that people who are core audience look at it and say, "Oh man, I see where that's going." Oh, I see what that's going to become. You have to do that. You're betraying the trust of your audience, which is a really powerful one. It's huge. Frankly, I mean, you have to be careful, because with the internet these days, all you have to do is put enough stuff out there that doesn't look right, and it's going to be what's happening right now. And a lot of people are going to be have already decided they hate it. They haven't even seen the show.
Mm-hmm. You can't continue to poop on your old school fans like that. It's not good form, I think.
They don't understand it well enough. See, that's the problem. There aren't enough people there. I don't know everybody that's there, but in my opinion, there's probably not enough people there who really understand the lore, the background, and the fan community. Without being intimate with that, there's no way you could really make good decisions about it. Now, when they did Next Generation, Gene was there. Bob Justman was there. Those people understood Star Trek better than anyone, of course. And you'll notice that when they first started up, two of the guys they got were Andy Probert and Rick Sternbach, because they had been with the thing since the first movie. They brought in people who were crazy about the show, who some of them were even who they were because of the show. And now you've got people working there who understand everything about it, know where it's going wrong. Some people whose tastes are in line with the core audience. I'm sure there are people there who are part of the core audience who are working on it, but it just comes really down to who is the captain of the ship, who's in charge. If your producer decides that he wants to do it his own thing, and he thinks what they had before was kind of crummy, you're going to see things change, and there's nothing the people in the art department can do about it.
JJ verse.
You need a champion on the production level.
Yeah, JJ verse.
I hate to loop back to this.
The JJ verse.
I hate to loop back to the aesthetics, but Doug, do you think that one of the things that they could have done to tie it in better is, while still going with the mostly blue uniforms, have panels with the different colors?
Well, I mean, from what I've seen, it mostly, number one, most disturbing thing of all is that Star Trek is now imitating the people who parodied it. It looks like Galaxy Quest to me, unfortunately, and that is kind of silly. It kind of makes you giggle when you look at it. I think that what they're doing now, instead of doing it's almost like they're doing a sketch of the old show. It's not of the other shows. They're doing an impression of it, There's so many things I would have done different aesthetically. Listen, maybe I'm crazy, but I think that if a number of us had been in there, like for instance, you mentioned the playback, the monitors and stuff like that. Stuff I've seen, it has nothing distinctive about it, at least what I've seen so far. It pretty much doesn't pass the squint test, and it was the same thing on the JJ universe. When we did the show, Mike Okuda always, and I used to do this when I did makeup, we had something we call the squint test, because 9 times out of 10, your playback is going to be blurry and in the background. So we would always look at everything all squinty-eyed to see what it broke down.
I thought I was the only person that did that. Oh my God, there's actually a term for it.
I think that's all
I've been doing that forever. That's awesome.
So if you squint your eyes and there's nothing remains, then you've got to go back. And so if you look at Mike's stuff, I mean, look at the stuff that he did for Next Generation, all those flow charts and T-bar graphics and stuff like that. That was so intriguing. I was so intrigued by those, and it was apparent because of the way they were laid out, and because Mike Okuda has this kind of mind. It's not magic to him, It's not fantasy. It's not magic. This is technology, and he thinks about what kind of information you want to be conveying to people on the bridge. And as a matter of fact, if you watch Enterprise, it was what was happening in those graphics convinced you that there was a complete organization behind that ship, that Starfleet was real.
Yeah.
That was carried to the nth degree in Enterprise. It had never been done better. Every panel on Enterprise was a monitor. And so Mike and Denise and Jim Vanover came up with graphics that covered every situation and did all new ones depending on what the script called for. So it's like if they were coming up on an anomaly, you just take a look at those monitors. All kinds of stuff is happening that relates to what's happening outside the ship. That's absolute, and you know it. You could tell. You could tell that the pulse of the ship has gone up. That's like subliminal manipulation. That is just, it's genius. To do Star Trek without Mike Okuda, are you out of your mind? Seriously. All you have to do is take a look and see that those designs that he did for L cars, how old are they now? Are they 30 years old?
Hold up. Wait a minute. Mike's not involved at all?
I visited the visual effects department, and everybody had L cars on their screen as a screensaver. People have it on their telephones.
Yep. It still holds up. Now, you know what? Because we said we'd keep it short. We're going on the half-hour mark here, and you mentioned Galaxy Quest, and I'm going to switch gears completely. Have you seen anything for Seth MacFarlane's show coming out on Fox, The Orville?
Just the trailer for it.
Okay. My fear is that they're going to do Star Trek better than Star Trek does.
Well, they do have Gabe involved.
True.
What?
Gabe Koner is working on The Orville.
I'm sure he's told everybody.
Yes, he has. He has told everybody. But he's working in the visual effects department. I guess he's doing a really good job over there. But visually, from what I've seen of it...
He's their primary, CG guy, I think.
He's doing, from what I've seen, they seem to be able... Just from the trailer, it feels more like a Star Trek show than the Star Trek show, and that's scary.
Seth MacFarlane is a big Star Trek fan,
Yeah.
He's always been a big Star Trek fan. He was on one of the episodes.
Yeah, he got ripped apart by Trip twice. I remember that episode. He got chewed up and down.
I guess.
I was just curious if if you had seen anything besides the trailer, but I mean.
No, it's the trailers.
Okay.
I'll definitely watch it.
You said you had dealings with them. Were you approached about working on Discovery?
I was just about hired. The thing is that ultimately you can't do whatever you want. You still would have to keep doing something over and over again until they decided that they liked it. We were actually, I know that Rick Berman has took a lot of heat from the fans back when the show was on the air. But when you look back now and you realize that Rick let everybody keep it on track to connect to Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek. And I got to hand it to him for that. He wasn't, everyone has an ego, but I felt it was mostly about the show with Rick Berman. I feel like Star Trek, once it became a really big name property, you got a lot of, geniuses.
Yeah.
Being asked to work on the show.
Yeah, I don't think people
J.J.
fully appreciate what kind of hoops you have to jump through in art production like that. there are so many flaming hoops set before you that you've got to leap through, and there's so many egos you've got to deal with. And
well, the thing is that even on a television show, but when you have someone like J.J. Abrams, who everyone is like, genuflecting to. Listen, I saw him on a Jon Stewart. I saw him with Jon Stewart, and he was saying that he says, I really, and he was just doing Star Trek. He says, I never really liked Star Trek as a kid. And as a matter of fact, he went on to say that one of the things he didn't like about Star Trek was how it got all philosophical and stuff, And that was like, ugh.
That is Star Trek.
That's what makes it different. That's what makes it Star Trek, I remember Jon Stewart. Stewart, he says, I think I stopped hearing you when you said you didn't like Star Trek.
I saw your mouth moving, but I just presumed you were apologizing. It was the best response ever. It was great.
It was wonderful, what upsets me is you go to J.J. Abrams' Star Wars movie, and did he turn it upside down? Did he? No, he recreated it the way it was, so there's hardly a bump between the movies. Then you look at Star Trek, and it's like, a gorilla who had the tourister luggage, is slamming it all over the cage and swinging around. Taking a box and shaking it up and throwing all the pieces out on the floor. What did you do that for? Did you really think we'd be happy with that? When you
we're going to do that thing.
Well, that could also be an argument, though, that whereas Lucasfilm has, and with Kathleen Kennedy, kind of has a pretty tight rein on what they expect, that maybe Paramount was like, we need to do something different, and so we're going to let JJ do whatever he wants.
That's possible.
Well, of course they let him do whatever he wants. He had a lot of blockbusters. He did great with those Mission Impossible movies, and of course they're going to let him. That's the trouble when you're doing a movie with someone who's a hotshot. They let you do whatever you want, and you're going to bring your own spin to it. I'm going to do my Star Trek. I know I could see what's wrong with it. I'm going to fix it. Everybody's has to fix it. If you have to fix it, I promise you will save yourself half the troubles that you're having if you just make it 100 years down the line. Once you start fucking around with what everyone loved, you're really asking for trouble. It's a minefield. They'd only be getting half the shit that they're getting now if they had moved Discovery 100 years down from Picard.
Yep, totally agree.
One of the things that they've also forgotten about Star Trek is that Star Trek was always a showcase for technology. It was almost like a World's Fair of the airwaves. You saw stuff that they were working on. When you do Star Trek, you go, I want you guys, the art department, to go and talk to scientists and inventors and read up on stuff and go tour labs and things and see what they're predicting for 50 years from now. Not 300 years from now, 50 years from now. And then I want you to take that, turn the screw into the future, and we're going to feature that stuff on the ship. And you know what will happen? In 50 years, after the new show comes out, they'll be going, wow, they were really geniuses. How did they know that this stuff was going to happen? Because they knew it was being worked on already. It makes them look really brilliant, like they have the gift of prophecy. But Gene and his people, they dealt with the Rand Corporation and all kinds of stuff, and they played on that. That's part of what makes it science fiction.
Well, he had ins, too. I mean...
It's not magic,
No.
It's not waving a magic wand. Star Trek, when you look at Star Trek ships, the good ones, you could take them apart in your mind's eye and figure out how they work. If you just stick a bunch of nacelles and saucers together, you go, okay, I'm not exactly sure why there's a cutout in the saucer in the middle.
You get the Enterprise F. I'm sorry.
We already agreed to that, Adam. It's the Space McDonald's.
It is the Space McDonald's.
If I were to criticize the Discovery that I saw in the dry dock, what I have to say is that this is all my opinion.
Go ahead.
But when you do a Federation starship, they are supposed to be almost like they're like marine life almost. They're sleek and they're beautiful. And they have curves, and they're elegant, and there's a certain amount of artsiness about everything. Roddenberry always called it technology unchained, where you weren't just building things with form-following function, but you were giving it a sweetness, call it sexiness if you want. when I look at the Discovery, it has very hard right angles, and it's like a blunt force instrument. There's nothing really sexy about it. First, I was never a big fan of Ralph McQuarrie's design for the Enterprise back when they were doing Star Trek: The Motion Picture. I was so relieved that they didn't use it. And I don't mind so much that they use it as a ancillary ship. But someone should take the producers should just lay their mitts off of trying to help design and just let them do something elegant and beautiful. To me, the aesthetic of the Discovery it's almost as if engineers studied the Klingon ships. They
Yes.
decided we're going to put a little Klingon, flavor. A lot
of people have said
the shape of the ship is dictated by the shape of the warp bubble.
Oh yeah.
You make a ship a certain shape to create a certain shaped warp bubble. So the Klingons are using some kind of right angle thing happening. I'm sorry if I'm blathering too much.
No, it's fine.
Girls and
well, this was perfect actually. This was exactly what we were hoping for. And we promised you short, so we'll keep it short, and we can say thank you, because this was awesome.
Well, if you want to get off, that's fine. I got till 3 o'clock.
Oh, okay. If you've got till 3. I'm trying to think what else.
If you got everything you need, we could go now.
The philosophical stuff in Star Trek that has always been its core. From what I've seen of Discovery, there's been a lot of bang-bang shoot-'em-ups. There seems to be, they're bringing the ancient Klingon stuff into it, which I still don't understand completely. But it's like they took that whole wagon train to the stars thing really to heart and didn't keep the heart of Star Trek in it. This is what Gene did. When Gene made Star Trek, he wrapped philosophy around or inside of a package that the networks were like, oh, cool, we got an outer space shoot 'em up, but they didn't realize they were being manipulated in a way. I don't think Discovery is going to be able to is pulling that off right now, because they don't seem to be pulling that. They're giving you a lot of drama here and a lot of drama there and action, but from what we've seen, there doesn't seem to have that heart that was in the original Star Trek.
No, Nichelle Nichols tells a great story too. Go ahead, Doug. I'm sorry.
It's just I haven't seen an episode.
Well, no, neither have I. But trailer-wise,
comment on that. When people make trailers, sometimes the trailers are put together by companies outside of the studio, and they're going to take what they think the audience finds most exciting, and they think that's, like Michael Bay, that his script every 8 pages has to have an explosion,
True.
Until you see an episode, you really don't know whether it's going to be Star Trek or not. I don't know. If you read the writer's guide, the original writer's guide, or even the Next Generation writer's guide, that the first thing Gene said was, take something you want to say something about and say something about it. Use this interesting perspective to write about the human condition or something that's going on in the world right now. Those were always the best Star Treks.
Yes. I was going to say, Nichelle Nichols has this great story that she tells from time to time about going into Gene's office and saying, I know what you're up to. And Gene is like, what are you talking about? And she points at him and she says, you're telling morality tales. And Gene puts a finger to his lips and goes, shh, they haven't figured it out yet. So that's a wonderful.
Yeah, we haven't seen an episode.
Yeah, if you really want to understand, if you really want to understand Gene Roddenberry, and I've said this before on Facebook, you got to take the time to watch a Western series called Have Gun Will Travel, which starred Richard Boone as a gunman by the name of Paladin. He used to be an officer in the cavalry, but he would take on these jobs helping people out. Of course, he had to pay. He wasn't just doing it out of the goodness of his heart, although his heart usually led him to the solution to the problem. But the point I'm making is that, and it's funny, I had read David Gerald in the 50-year mission, saying that the problem with Gene Roddenberry was that he'd never been an Indian. And those are his words, not mine, by the way. He'd never been an Indian. He'd always been a chief, and he didn't know what it was like to be an Indian. Well, if you really knew anything about Gene Roddenberry, you would know that Gene really paid his dues. Gene wrote 24 episodes of Have Gun Will Travel. And some of them are my favorites. And you could see Star Trek in those shows. And you could see that Paladin has been split 3 ways to make Kirk, Spock, and McCoy.
Now, I got another question for you. This is a minutia thing, but because you might have a little more insight into some of this, it's been floating around that there's a memo out there, the insignia thing about Star Trek. People are flipping out that they're wearing the Delta insignia. That there is a memo that Gene and I think it was Bob Justman had put out, or was sent to Bob Justman, about all Federation uniforms should have the Delta on them. I think it was either 2nd or 3rd season that this memo was put out. No? That's not real? Okay. Then I stand corrected from a last show.
Because it makes it so... What happened was early on, and I think it was while it was still in the 1st season, or towards the end of the 1st season, Bob decided... I think it was Bob. Oh, wait a second. Hold on.
No, he's thinking.
I'm misunderstanding you. Originally, they were going to have a different insignia for every ship, and they did it through the series.
Yes.
Excalibur,
Mm-hmm.
But when the new shows rolled around, they changed that because it was a problem on the old show, they thought, coming up with the new designs. And just as far as a continuity, they thought it was a pain in the ass for continuity.
Okay.
But if you read Gene Roddenberry's novelization of Star Trek the Motion Picture, he explains it.
That it was the Enterprise was adopted as the
Enterprise
Universal.
was the only ship of the 12 to return.
Okay, so that's why the actual Delta was adopted. Okay.
Adopted as the main symbol of Starfleet.
Okay, because someone has been floating an image out there on the internet that looks like a actual memo, and it says something about, from here on out, that all uniforms must have the Delta on them, and that was just somebody trying to get around the whole, because the canon thing is what people are flipping out about. Everything, it's against canon, it's against the history of it, it's against that, and someone said, well, this was out there. Okay, but you cleared it up, so...
Well, hold on a second. I mean, on TNG, all the Starfleet personnel were Arrowhead communicators.
Yes.
So it's established.
It is established.
It's not like it's a mystery or anything. It's established. I like the idea of the different insignias, actually.
It's like a unit patch.
I do too, and they're fun to design.
Yeah, it's like a unit patch. It's kind of like you belong to this group.
It's like a mission patch. Yeah, it's a mission patch.
I mean, what was this?
I think it's great. I'm sorry that they decided not to do that, but that's how Michael could. Sometimes things are just about someone getting a bug up their ass.
That's about it.
I can't tell you how many times I've been on shows where it wasn't important and it became important.
And then you need a lot of drinks
because it was someone's
to kill
idea,
the bug they have up their ass. So there you go.
Well, we'll let you go.
I mean, I think they're missing out on all the extra communicators they could sell.
That's true. There's a lot of stuff they could do.
Yeah, they missed a marketing opportunity there, didn't they?
Profit.
But we could. This could go on. Yeah. This could go on and on and on and on, but we're not going to let that happen. Doug, I thank you for being here.
Yeah, time to go.
Yes, I thank you for being here. Hey, it was awesome having you again.
It's my pleasure. I love talking Star Trek.
I will not be there. None of us I know are going to be in Vegas this year. But the next time you're near Ticonderoga, I need to know so I can head out that way. It's only a couple hours from my mother's house.
Same here. Yeah, I'm only like 2 hours away from James's studio as well. So
we'd like to do it again in the fall, but we'll see.
I should ask one thing before you rush off in the next 6 minutes.
One last question.
You can shoot me down if you don't want to answer it. Axanar.
Go ahead. Axanar, did you say?
Yes. Yes, Axanar. What do you think of that whole mess?
Alec Peters I do know Alec Peters, and we are friendly. We see each other once in a blue moon, but frankly, I think he took it a little too far. He tends to be a very brash guy, and I hate to say it, but Axanar pretty much pooped in the punch bowl when it came to fan films. I don't think that anyone will. And that's a real shame. We were seeing something really amazing happening. What exactly happened? Look, they did raise quite a bit of money. Did they? How much money did they raise? Was it like
$1.4 million?
$1.4 million confirmed.
The thing is, when you start collecting that kind of money, you're not really a fan film anymore. And I think that's where you get into trouble. The Paramount is going to. I mean, look. What if Warner Brothers decided to do their fan film? You know what I mean? You've got that's. I wish that they hadn't. I think that some of the rules are very tight, but I don't blame them. It had to be regulated. I wish that they had a better fan relations person who had some authority to do some interesting stuff with the fans. I mean, can you imagine what a great reality show that would be, pitting fan films against one another? I think even what goes on behind the scenes of one fan film is fun to watch. Anyway, we're blathering away again.
We
It's
are.
time to go.
It is time to go. Thank you, Doug, and we'll talk to you again sometime in the future.
Yep, thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Doug.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us at the Geek Easy. We have some big changes coming down the road, but to find out about them, you have to hit that subscribe button. You could also follow us on Facebook and Twitter to find out what's new and what's coming down the road. So do us a favor, subscribe.